is Truth Be Told. Those decision makers, leaders, governors, politicians, experts, and all those who sit in the aisle of resources, power.
A lovely good evening, a lovely Monday to you all our viewers watching us via the Topsa Decoder channel 89 or the StarTimes application or on our Facebook page, which is Crown TV Zambia. Search for the page, like it, and be sure to leave a comment. Now, my guest for tonight on Truth Be Told is a young person that has ventured into governance, and he is a young person that is making a difference. And being a young person, he is by all means trying and striving to better the lives of people from his ward. My guest tonight on Truth Be Told is Smarter Mainda, and he joins me on set. Good to see you and welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, and good evening to our viewers out there.
Okay, so may I make mention that my name is Joe Smarter, and of course we have our usual line that you can come through and interact with the Council of Kamwala Ward 5. And if you are in Kamwala South or Kamwala Ward 5 as it were, feel free to come through and interact with your councillor. Ask the questions that need to be asked and find out from him what needs to be done in your ward. And of course, if you are a resident of Lusaka or Zambia at large, feel free to indulge in our conversation this evening. Mr. Smarter, let's get into it. A young councillor, you have been at the helm of Kamwala Ward 5 for the past 1 year, 8 months. Now, yesterday's theme was transforming minds for accelerated youth development. As a young youth councillor, how are you interpreting this theme?
Thank you very much for that question, and once again, thank you for inviting me on the program. As a young person in governance or politics, if you like, the interpretation of the theme is that a lot lies on our shoulders as youths if we are going to see this country develop and become a society where everyone can be able to aspire for their dreams and actually achieve their dreams. And really, for me, the key word is transformation, because you do realize to say that there needs to be a change in our mindsets, especially as youths, for us to be able to transform this country and make headways in terms of development. I think at the outset, Joe, it's important that we understand what are we talking about, what are the concerns of the youths in this day and age. I think for me, it's there are 3 key issues that are facing us at the moment. The first key issue that faces the youth is poverty. There is widespread poverty amongst the youths, and that's why you see that those that are not mentally strong engage in antisocial activities. They begin to abuse alcohol, they begin to abuse drugs. If it's women folk, they begin to go into prostitution. That's on the poverty side. And then there is also the issue of unemployment, high unemployment. I would like even to say that the issue of unemployment really has reached what I would call pandemic levels, because we have about 2.6 million youths who are unemployed. That's really a disaster. That's the second issue. The third issue is the lack of opportunity for youths to participate in governance spaces. What am I talking about? I'm talking about a political office. We really have a challenge because, by and large, Zambian politics, or I could even extend it to African politics, is highly driven by finances. You could even call it dollar democracy, if you like, or pay to play, or pay to participate kind of politics. So you find that a lot of youths still don't have an opportunity to set a foothold in the political space, and that means that they cannot drive the agenda of development in the way they see it fit. So those are the 3 major critical issues which I see: poverty, unemployment, and the lack of opportunity in governance space. And to come to your question earlier, how do I interpret the theme of transforming minds for development? Really, it has everything to do in the attitude that we have as youth towards governance issues. And I can tell you to say, many a time when I meet youths, I get disappointed when they say, well, I'm not really interested in politics so long as things are going well for me. I think that attitude must change, because you must realize that by and large, everything, Comrade Tapelo, including the things that happen in your bedroom, are influenced by politics. When you talk about high fuel prices, you talk about high food prices, you talk about unemployment, everything is a political issue. And each time you have an opinion or a mindset that's different from your neighbor, then you are involved in politics. So it's important for us to embrace politics, because that is the only way we are going to drive this country forward.
Now, Mr. Smarter, you have talked about poverty. Now, looking at your ward and Kabwata constituency altogether, one would say it's a middle class ward, it's a middle class constituency. But let us not run out from the fact that it's notoriously known for having too many bars or drinking places. Now, coming to the issue of poverty, as a young councillor, how are you addressing these issues in your ward, to be specific? Because we understand, yes, there is the CDF from local government, and we do understand that there in the CDF lies some opportunities for young people, because I heard you clearly, you talked about opportunities. Now, marrying the two, poverty, unemployment, and also the issue that has to do with opportunities for young people, and also the issue that has to do with nightclubs, bars, drinking places, in your ward specifically, how are you addressing this?
Thank you once again for that question. Let me start by saying that Kamwala Ward 5 generally has got three, let me call them classes. It's not really middle class per se. Of course, you've got elements of the middle class. You've got elements of what you'd call the well-to-do, but you also have elements of the very poor, you know. I don't know if you can call them third class or what, because Kamwala is vast. It starts from the CBD, okay? It covers Madras, it covers New Kamwala, then it covers Kamwala South, which is a mix of what you'd call the middle class and the poor. There are areas in Kamwala South like Query and other places within Kamwala South itself, whereby if you went there today, you wouldn't know that you're in Kamwala South. You'd think maybe you are in, let's say, Kanyama or Chivolia or Kuku, those kind of areas where you find people really who are struggling to survive, people who are earning less than $1 a day. So it's a mix of all these classes. And so the approach really should be responsive to the acknowledgement that there are actually these different classes. And only on Saturday, I was making a donation of foodstuffs and other non-food items to the victims, the worst affected victims of the floods, which have assailed us for the past 2 months or so. And really, you find that people are living in incomplete houses. There are no windows there. There are no doors there. And there are flood waters everywhere. They are affected by mosquitoes and the potential of diseases such as cholera and whatnot. So really, that points you to the fact that we have poor citizens or poor residents really who are living in that area. And so on Saturday, we were helping them out with mealie meal, with cooking oil, with salt, with mosquito nets and washing powder. But they are not the only ones. There are quite a number of people who need such help, and we are hoping that in due course, other government institutions that are charged with the response to disasters are able also to play their part. But coming back to your question about nightclubs and those kinds of issues where you have notorious activity happening, I think that happens everywhere in Lusaka. But the problem from a local authority or from a local perspective, which is there, is that we have problems with enforcement of bylaws. Believe you me, Joe, the local authority, by the way, is like a small government. That's why it's called a local authority or local government. We have bylaws that regulate issues such as the opening time for nightclubs, what kind of documentation or licenses that you need to operate a liquor store. All those things are there, but the problem has to do with enforcement. There is serious lack of enforcement from the local authority itself. But you might ask a question and say, well, you are part of the council, you are a councillor, what are you doing about it? Well, our duties as councillors are to make the policy, to give policy directives to the council. The job of enforcement, the job of ensuring to say that bars do not operate beyond a stipulated time, or they do not play loud music which is going to disturb neighbors or people who reside within the vicinity of those clubs, has to do with the local authority, in particular the Department of Health, to be able to enforce those regulations. But of course, the reality on the ground is that rarely ever gets done. If it gets done, maybe there'll be inspections for 1 or 2 weeks, and then it's business as usual. Clubs will be playing, blasting music, beyond levels where people
let me
can
find
even
out from you,
tolerate.
just there, Mr. Smarter, why is it rarely done? Why is it rarely done? Why can't we see enforcement of bylaws being taken seriously by the local authority? Why is it rarely done when people are there disturbing residents of your ward, disturbing, in generally causing unnecessary noise to the residents of Kamwala South and your ward in particular? Why are we seeing laws not being enforced? From
There are
your
two-
perspective.
Yes, there are two factors that affect that. The first is a lack of will, enforcement will, from the officers who are actually charged with such enforcement. From my experience in the past 1 year, 6 months or so of being in the local authority, you find that there are people that work for the council who have, quote unquote, have arrangements with these bar owners. So you find that there are times when committees of the council, for example, the legal services committee that is responsible for issuing license, we do make spot checks to these bars by visiting them unannounced. But you find that these people actually know when you are coming before we even arrive on the scene. So they get tip-offs, and that points to an issue of collusion from officers within the council who are actually in cahoots or in good boots with these operators of nightclubs who are flouting regulations. And so it is very difficult to enforce when you have people who are within the council but have got arrangements with these people who run the nightclubs, where they perhaps they're given 1 or 2 ways every month or so in order to look the other way as regulations are being flouted. That's number one. Number two has to do with an issue of capacity. You know, Lusaka City Council is one of the councils that's the biggest council in the country, by the way, but it has serious issues with capacity or resourcefulness. What am I talking about? For you to be able to conduct an efficient patrol to check which nightclub is operating under the stipulated regulations, you need vehicles to start with. You need equipment, you need manpower, you need resources to carry out those patrols. But you find that the Lusaka City Council perhaps doesn't even have a dedicated vehicle for that duty for the public health department. So when there are no vehicles, how do you expect officers to carry out those inspections? It becomes very problematic. It's the same issue that we have with city planning. And this is a fact. City planning does not even have a duty or a patrol vehicle for them to come to your area, Comrade Jota Pero, and ask to say, who gave you permission to build this offense? Or do you have papers that allow you to build in this particular area? City Council does not, or planning department does not have a vehicle. So people will be building the way they want, recklessly, without any authority from the local planning department. And then we have such issues such as floods. You have areas where people should not have built, they have built there, but there is no inspection, there is no enforcement due to the lack of capacity. So in summary, two key issues that prevent the local authority from actually carrying out their mandate in ensuring to say that some of these pubs or clubs do not flout regulations. One is a lack of will from officers themselves who are in collusion with the owners of these bars. They have arrangements that defeat the purpose of these bylaws. Number two is a lack of resources from the council. Not enough vehicles, not enough manpower, not enough equipment. Those are the reasons why we have these challenges. Otherwise, the will from us councillors, in particular from myself, the will is there. I think you do remember to say there was a time that I paid a visit to this area called KCC in Kawata, and I clearly told the council, the town clerk in particular, by that time it was Mr. Alex Mwansa. I said, something has to be done about this. And if you go to Kawata today, I think one of the biggest clubs there, they have made an arrangement of soundproofing their club, because previously there was a front edge of that club which was open. Now it's closed, I think I'm told that the sound levels are kind of minimal, but that's not the only clubs. The other clubs, they haven't done anything about that. So the local authority again must be alive to these issues and be able to visit these clubs and tell them, say, look, if you're going to play music that disturbs your neighbors, you need to follow the regulation where you have to soundproof your club, so that whatever music you're playing does not go out there and disturb people that are sick, disturb people that are supposed to go for work in the morning, and disturb students and pupils who perhaps have to spend the whole night studying for their exams.
Okay. Now, we carried out a story as Crown TV. We reached out to the local authority and seeing that you are part of the local authority, Mr. Smarter. And we were told it's a public holiday, so we can't get a comment. The issue had to do with the cemetery, the Challenge Cemetery. Now, this drives me to my next question. Where is the reluctancy to carry out duties to make sure that these concerns that you, the councillors, have, the residents have, are addressed? Why is this reluctance coming from? Are we having people that are not ready or willing to undertake their duties in these offices?
Thank you. That's an excellent question. You know, the local authority officers, the local authorities, directors, chiefs, they know their duties. Okay, they know their duties, and many a time they know what should be done. But then sometimes, and most often should I say, they do not do what needs to be done. The reasons I've given you earlier on, I said sometimes it's an issue of lack of resources. Other times it's an issue of lack of will to enforce. You know, there are sometimes when officers find themselves entangled or too familiar with these areas or these business houses which they ought to visit and make an enforcement of the law. So you find that enforcement becomes a problem. But you also have an issue whereby, and this is a key issue, you know, whenever duty is not carried out, there must be punitive measures that should follow. If you, as a journalist here, do not follow the rules or the regulations that govern your job here, there must be punitive measures that should follow. Perhaps you come on set, you are drunk, and you know you embarrass the whole institution and the media house. There must be punitive measures that can follow. But if there are no punitive measures, if you come to this interview, you are drunk and you misrepresent and embarrass the institution, you put it in bad disrepute, and then the following day you are back on set and nobody cautions you, the director doesn't call you, he doesn't reprimand you, no warning letter is written to you, you take it to say, well, nothing can happen to me, so you are unlikely to change that behavior. What am I talking about? In the council, or at Lusaka City Council, the powers of us councillors to discipline erring officers have been stripped away from us. This duty now lies with the Local Government Service Commission. Previously, councillors could move a motion in the chambers to say, well, we are not happy perhaps with this director, or we are not happy with this service chief, or we are not happy with the ABCD. Can punitive measures be taken against them, or disciplinary measures? We had that before, but that was taken away. And so that has bred an atmosphere of reluctance or laissez-faire attitude, if you like, whereby they know, well, even if I don't perform my duties, the council can't fire me. The body of the council, by the way, the councillors are like a board of directors at the City Council. They know to say that board can't fire them. Even in full chambers, you can't even move a motion or a recommendation to have a particular officer disciplined. And so there is no punitive measures, there is no disciplinary measure that can be taken from us councillors against erring officers or those that are relaxed to do their duties. It has to go to the Local Government Commission, and you don't know if it gets there, if it is acted on. There are all those issues. So the reluctance that you have noticed in some of the officers, not all the officers, but in some of the officers, because we've got officers that are really, really hardworking at the Lusaka City Council that want to see things move forward. They are responsive when you approach them, but there are others that are obstinate or stubborn in their own ways. They do not respond. So if you do not give councillors the power to take effective action against officers that do not do what they're supposed to do, then you're going to have this kind of laissez-faire attitude and reluctance continuing. And at the end of the day, it's service delivery that suffers. You find to say that there will be trash and waste being thrown everywhere, in roads, in the railways, in abandoned houses, and nothing will be done about that. The pressure will come on the councillors. They will say, well, the councillors sibasebenza vishala vili kuli konse sibabwera otenga. You have issues of runaway bars that operate even up to 01 or 02, no enforcement. The people that can't sleep, again, will point a finger to the council, say there's a councillor, but nothing is happening. So all these service delivery issues are going to sprout up. And at the end of the day, the people that are held accountable are the elected officials. And we are the ones whose necks are on the chopping board, because the town clerk is not an elected official, he's an appointed official. The directors are employed. They can work up to the time they are 55 or 65. Or maybe if they extend the year, you can save in the public service to 70. They'll be there. But for us, those of us who are in politics, it's a 5-year mandate. And we are currently looking at the 3 years remaining, not to count the election year. Maybe you have 2 years to prove yourself. So really the pressure is upon us. But again, if we cannot have the power to be able to take action against erring officers, it becomes a difficult scenario.
Okay, let's move in and zero in into your word, Mr. Smarter. Let's look at Kamwala South Market. There have been issues there. There have been concerns of security. There have been issues that that particular market harbors criminal elements, and some have even turned those particular structures into their homes. And I remember last time when I had this an interview with you before you were elected, you said when you come into office, you see to it, or you do something about it, or you do 1 or 2 things to make sure that these concerns are addressed. There's a lot that has to be discussed over this market, but let's talk about criminal elements. I know it's near the police station, but there are criminal elements and criminal activities that take place in that market. How are you addressing these concerns?
Thank you. You are very correct in stating that the Kamwala South Market, okay, and that's the only market that is there. In fact, I shouldn't call it the market, because it's dormant right now. That particular market really has never fulfilled its potential. What do I mean? It's very vast. It's got so many shops, many of them incomplete, but there is really nothing that happens in that market. It's under the city council. It's got a market master. It's got a few cashiers, but there is no activity that happens there, because you understand, for a market to be fully functional, and by the way, Kamwala South doesn't even have a functional market. People have to go to Chawama. They cross over from Kamwala South to Chawama to Kuku to buy their vegetables, tomatoes, and onions. We do not have a functional market there. So the challenge that has been there is that a market has to have key services for it to even function as a market. Number one, it must have running water. It must have toilets. It must have electricity. Okay. It must have a security. Okay. All those key issues have not been done. The first thing that I've done, which we are proud to announce to say we have achieved, is putting security gates. We have put security gates there, but because there is no physical security present, some people do turn those incomplete shops into sort of dwellings, which is very wrong. But again, because there is no constant 24/7 security presence, you have those people living in there, making them their homes, which is very wrong. We also have the issue of a lack of a market shelter, or what do you call it, a vegetable shelter. And that vegetable shelter, I'm proud to say that in this particular year for CDF, it's going to be implemented, because it came under the 2022 CDF projects plan. There is a borehole and water recirculation system that's going to be installed under the 2022 CDF. There's also a market shelter that is going to be set up this year. All these issues, I think they have passed procurement
now
stage.
on the market shelter, Mr. Smarter, please don't lose your thought, but let me find out, on the market shelter, when you look at the space, there's no enough space in that market to construct a market shelter. Then my question is, are we going to see the raising down of some of those structures to accommodate a market shelter? Because the space that remains, it's very small for a market shelter. You and I would agree, and obviously the viewers and residents of Kamwala South would agree that that space can't accommodate a proper, decent market shelter. So are we going to see the raising down of those structures?
Actually, I also used to think that the space that is available cannot accommodate a market shelter until I saw the engineering drawings. Okay. The engineering drawings actually show that a standard market shelter can be put there. But of course, from the naked eye, it seems as if the space is too constrained, but there's actually space there.
It does.
However, I've also told the engineering department to say that there are some incomplete buildings which are just surrounding the market shelter plan. And I've said some of them have to be raised down so that perhaps we can have a few more meters for the market shelter facility so that we can expand it to accommodate more markets. But in any case, the fact is that the drawings do show that the space is actually adequate to accommodate a market shelter. The only challenge that we have is the refuse bay for waste, because the refuse bay for waste is actually at the far end of the market shelter. So we have to move the proposed site where we can have a waste refuse bay constructed. That's the only headache that we have. So all in all, the market, the procedure for, or the process for having that market to be revamped, I call it a white elephant because it has got a massive potential if all the facilities are there. So this year we'll be expecting a borehole and water to be actually provided. We're expecting a market shelter to be constructed. The security gates are already there. So once we have the water running, all the toilets will be connected, and we have 2 toilet facilities. It's unfortunate that last year one of the toilets was vandalized, pipes and faucets were removed, but that's a temporary setback. I think with the connection of water, those toilets can be connected and they'll be up and running. And from there, we're going to see a transformation of the market into a fully fledged operational market. And all those people that are living there illegally will have to be removed, because under the Markets and Bus Stations Act, it is not allowed for one to live in the market or make the market a home dwelling.
Okay, 30 minutes into our program, we open up the phone lines, and fortunately, we do have a message from our viewers, or messages from our viewers out there watching us this particular evening. We can kindly go to that particular message. Okay, so this message comes from Charity Nglovu, and it reads, "Grade the roads, not just looking for plots." Okay, that's a message coming from Charity Nglovu there. So, Mr. Smarter, Charity has got a concern. Can the roads be graded, not just looking for plots? And councillors, particularly in your constituency, are notorious for allocating illegal plots. And this reminds me of the area in Livala, is it Livala South, where people allocated land on a railway, on a land that belongs to Zambia Railways, and there was a rail line passing there, and those structures were demolished, Mr. Smarter. And again,
no, they haven't been demolished.
They haven't been
the houses
demolished,
that were built on the railway, they have not been demolished.
So what we had and read wasn't accurate, because obviously
those houses that were built on the rail reserve for Zambia Railways are still standing as we speak. They have not been demolished. There was, however, a ruling by the appeals court, the Land Tribunal Court, that ruled to say that the construction of those houses did not follow council procedure. They did not get clearance from Zambia Railways, and so they are illegal and they have to be demolished. That's where the issue stands, but they have not been demolished.
They have not been.
So
demolished.
perhaps the question should be why.
Okay. So the question, the question is why, and I don't even know where to direct this question from, because obviously, you as the new Dawn government, your UPND councillor, came on a ticket of fighting corruption, but seeing that those structures are still standing, it means that the fight against corruption is somehow being compromised. But we'll be coming to the issues of corruption. Let us not digress, Mr. Smarter. Charity has got a concern. Grade the roads, and this brings me to the road that is near Zinc Pub, just opposite Kamwala Secondary School. Yes, it's ever flooded year in, year out. Last time we saw gravel being brought there, but that made the road worse. What is the lasting solution to that particular road?
Thank you, and thank you to Charity for her question. Charity is very correct in her concern for roads, grading the roads. Perhaps I might even add that there should be construction of drainages, because if we're going to talk about Zinc Pub, and it's not just Zinc Pub, it's a lot of areas in Kamwala. They're in desperate need for drainages to be dug, because at the end of the day, if you grade a road and that particular road does not have a drainage and it rains, that road becomes flooded, it becomes impassable. So all in all, the issues of grading are on the books, or rather on the plans for Kamwala Ward. And it's not just Kamwala Ward, it's the whole of Kawata constituency, which needs serious works in terms of roads and drainages to be done. So Charity, we are alive to those problems of roads, and we are doing our level best to ensure to say that from the CDF resources and also from RDA, the Road Development Agency, we get some kind of help, because you do understand that grading of roads or road maintenance is a multi-million kwacha activity. It's not a cheap venture. If we dedicated the whole CDF to do roads and drainages, believe you me, nothing else will be done in terms of women and youth empowerment. Nothing will be done in terms of bursaries, skills bursaries and boarding school bursaries. Nothing will be done. So we have to engage, and I've written to RDA. I wrote to them about 2 weeks ago. Of course, it had to do with issues to do with the floods, because there are so many roads that have been opened up or dug up in Kamwala South to allow for flood waters to flow, and I'm glad that they are flowing. But we have to cover those roads, because if we don't, we are going to be interrupting traffic, we are going to be interrupting movement of people. So we need culverts and those other issues for those roads to become passable.
Okay, so on my screen there, and I'm sure the viewers are able to see, we are seeing the areas that were flooded or in Kamwala South, and particularly in your ward, Mr. Smarter, those are the affected residents. Now, there has been concern coming from the residents themselves. They are saying that some have mixed feelings of moving from those particular places to the places where the government said they want to relocate them. However, there has been a concern from GMMU itself. We carried out a story as Crown TV where GMMU is saying that these things take time, and they need to identify a place where they can relocate them and give them new places to live in. However, let us not forget that the president made this particular pronouncement that this should be done quickly. It was a directive to you, the councillors, the ministers involved, and whoever was involved, including the disaster management and mitigation unit, Mr. Smarter. But recently, what our reporters were told is that these things take time. So now we begin to ask, and this is truth be told, we want the truth. And for those people out there to know the truth, and they also need the truth. From a councillor's perspective, can this exercise be done within a month, within a week? What's the time frame for such an undertaking to be done and completed so that the affected residents are relocated?
Thank you very much for that question. First of all, I want to say that I cannot speak for DMMU because I do not understand their processes and paperwork, how it moves that side. What I can tell you is that the residents in my ward needed this help as far back as 2 months ago. Because look, when your house is flooded, you know, it's flooded up to the sockets. And only on Saturday, when we were making those donations for food items, I visited Mrs. Annie Miova. She's one of the worst affected residents in terms of this flood. Her house is totally flooded. You have to, when you enter a house, water reaches your almost thigh level. If you are short, it could be even your chest level. And she's living in such a house. The only room that is spared is what she calls her bedroom, because it's a bit on the high side. That is the only room that does not have, that's not flooded by water. So when I entered that house, I could not believe that somebody, a human being, is actually still living there, you know. And this is a reminder to me that indeed there are some people who really have to be relocated. But again, we can't force the hand of those particular officers or institutions that are responsible for that. But on my part, I feel those people need to be rented alternative accommodation as soon as possible. And if I had it in my own capacity as a councillor to rent that woman a house, perhaps I could have rented a house for her, maybe even a room for the next 3 months, so that perhaps in that 3 months water could subside and she could go back to those dwellings. But the major a challenge which these people have is that they are poor. You asked me in the beginning at the beginning of the program to say what are the economic classes in Kamwala. They are mixed. They are well-to-do, they are middle class, and they are poor. Her, she falls in the poor brackets. She cannot afford to move from that house because that's the only house that she has. She invested whatever income that she had in building that house. It's unfortunate that it was built in a place that is prone to floods. So there is nowhere else she can go. She has no relatives around. She has no children. She's literally vulnerable. So it's such people such as Mrs. Anne Mioba who we need to help, because the whole essence of leadership, the whole essence of being in government is to find solutions to people's problems. And right now, the problem that we have in Kamwala South, the major problem is the problem of floods, the problem of where people are living in a deplorable state. They are living in conditions where a human being shouldn't live. So we have to be able to find solutions to such challenges as soon as possible. So on my part, I feel we are already late in finding those solutions, because you can see that the rain has kind of subsided, but the water is still there. But the help really which these people need in terms of relocating them should have been provided as far back as yesterday.
Okay. Let me find out now. Let's come to the issue of Constituency Development Fund, which is CDF. There have been concerns from different sectors of society, including some members of parliament that have sat in that particular seat you are sitting in, talking about the access to these funds. Some are saying they're having challenges in accessing these funds, and I want to find out from you, being a man on the ground, is there any challenge in accessing constituency development funds, Mr. Smart?
I'm glad that
what has been your experience?
I'm glad that this program is called Truth Be Taught.
Exactly.
The truth is that yes, there are challenges, procedural challenges in accessing the CDF. And look at it. This is 2023. We are in March, okay? But I can tell you that from the revised CDF, because the revised CDF of 28 million or so took effect in 2022.
Okay.
This is 2023. There is no single project that you can point at in my ward or in Kawata or even in Lusaka district for that matter, where you can point to say that this is the work that has been done from the 2022 CDF. The issue has been with the bureaucracy and the paperwork that is associated with ensuring to say that these funds are released to allow projects to take place. I've given you an example, or you've even asked me about the Kamwala South market in my ward. That's a market is a beneficiary of the CDF. We want a water tank there and a borehole. We want a market shelter there. All these things have been put on plan. They have passed through the hoops and the loops of the procedures, but up to now, not even a brick has been laid. And you are right to say that it's not just us councillors who are concerned with this kind of bureaucracy which is drawing us back in terms of development, but even some MPs are also concerned. It's been an issue that has even been raised in Parliament, and a few measures have been taken to that effect to try and sort out this issue, because I'm told the several applications relating to CTF no longer have to go to the Ministry of Local Government. The duties have now been decentralized. It's now being done at provincial level, but even then we are yet to see the process speed up so that we can have these critically needed projects to take place. You talked about the issue of free education. You touched on the issue of free education earlier on. We have a crisis when it comes to education, because in as much as we do appreciate that education is free, but it has come up with ripple effects. What are those ripple effects? There's been an influx of pupils that are now going into schools because there's free education. That's a good thing, but that has put pressure on the existing infrastructure. We do not have enough classrooms. I can give you an example of Kamwala Basic School in my ward. We have an issue to do with desks. There are not enough desks. There are not enough classroom blocks. And so we made an application for a 1x3 classroom block, which should have been done last year under the 2022 CDF. But up to now, it still hasn't been done. And when people look at those things, they're seeing not enough seating in the classrooms, not enough classroom blocks, and they know there's a CDF. The questions begin to arise: where is the CDF? Are you pocketing it as councillors, or where is the problem?
Are you pocketing? Are you then, as councillors, but let's move on from that, that's been petty. Let's find out from you, Mr. Smarter. 2022, 2021, 2022, CDF was increased, right?
Yes.
25.7 million. Then 2022, 2023, 28.3 million, somewhere there. Let me find out. From the 2021, 2022 allocation of CDF, your ward, your constituency as Kabwata constituency has not benefited from CDF. Is that what you're trying to say, or tell my viewers out there? Or no single project has been constructed, erected in Kabwata constituency, or particularly your ward as Kamwala Ward 5? No single project has been embarked on. Talk of desks being made locally, talk of classrooms being constructed, talk of drainages being constructed, talk about roads being constructed. Nothing has been done from the increase of CDF from the 2021-2022. Let's find out. We are on Truth Be Told.
Like I said, it's not an issue that you can deny, because the people who live in the ward can tell you if there's been any project implementation or any project development in the ward. It's not something that it's very difficult to hide away from some of these things. So the bottom line is that from the 2022 CDF, there is no project. I'm speaking for Kamwala Ward 5, okay, where I'm a councillor. I can take you around and I can tell you to say there is been no project that has even been started. Look, there is even a maternity wing at Kamwala South Health Post, because Kamwala Ward only has 2 health institutions. There is the old Kamwala Clinic, which is near RCC, the church, near Kamwala trading area. That's the oldest clinic. Then there is Kamwala South Health Post, which at the moment is closed due to floods. I can tell you to say that there is a maternity wing there, which was budgeted for under the 2021 CDF. Okay, I think the budget amount was about 800,000. As we are speaking, that maternity wing has not been completed. I don't know how many times I've gone to knock on the town clerk's office to ask what is happening to this clinic, because under the 2021 CDF, money was released for that maternity wing to be completed, but up to now it has not been completed. Actually, it was even removed from the reports, because you know, every quarter or so, councillors, we do have what we call a full council. And that full council, you get reports on all the business that has to do with the local authority. You're talking about legal services issues, health issues, planning issues. You can talk about housing issues and all those things. They come in the report. I can tell you to say that the report, the finance reports, which shows how many projects are happening in a ward, that particular item of the maternity wing in Kamala was removed. And I took the town clerk to task to say, how can you remove an issue or a project that has not been completed away from the reports? How am I going to know if works have been completed? I was told, no, that issue is going to go back into the report. Money was not we were wasted. The money is still there.
Mr.
And
Smarter,
so, at the moment,
who's holding on to the money?
The local authority,
the money was released. We understand
Yes.
that, and obviously, we have heard reports and read reports from government that monies were released in all the 156 constituencies regarding CDF, and Water constituency happens to be one of those constituencies, and your ward, Kamwala Ward 5, happens to be one of those wards which are supposed to be beneficiaries of CDF. Who's holding on to this money, in your own opinion?
the local authority is holding on to that money. For the 2021, we are zeroing in on the issue of the maternity wing,
Exactly.
which is incomplete. I'm trying to bring in the maternity wing because I want to show you the delay in terms of projects. I'm not talking about 2022, because when the UPND came in power, we are talking about 2022 CDF, the increased CDF, and 2023. Okay, 2021 was actually under the PF regime. That money was released in May 2021. But up to now, a project that was budgeted for and money was released has not been completed. I can even show you a copy of a letter which I wrote to the office of the town clerk, asking among other issues to say, why is this maternity wing not complete? Because money was allocated. Of course, they tell you, no, we are going to talk to the engineering director. Engineering director will say, no, money is actually there. We are going to ask procurement to begin the process. It's 3 weeks. So as we start Tuesday tomorrow, that's one of the issues. I'll go and knock again on the office of the town clerk, say, my maternity wing up to now, which was budgeted for under 2021 CDF, has not been completed. The other new projects under the increased CDF for 2022, such as the 1 by 3 classroom block at Kamala Basic School, the Lakson Maposhi Police Post in Kamala South, the market shelter, which is supposed to go to Kamala South, completion of the water reticulation system, again at Kamala South Market, and the provision of the desks. All those are pending issues. And I wouldn't be surprised if we went into December still talking about the same issues. And these are the things which really make me sad as a leader, because I'm trying my very level best to ensure to say that issues of development in my ward are spearheaded, carried out, and completed, so that we can have something to point at. But alas, we work with institutions and officers who have their own pace of working, and it's difficult to control them at times.
Okay, I know we are slowly winding up, Mr. Smarter, but let me find out from you. Is this the delay? Is it because of the red tapes that the president, the Republican president, talked about, or there are just individuals within the local authority that are frustrating government efforts? From your point of view, from your point of view, I know this question will rattle a lot of feathers, but this is truth be told, and we want to know, because you are such one individual that has taken the local authority to task. We saw you at some point, you took garbage to the entrance of Lusaka City Council to raise awareness and to get their attention to come and collect garbage in your ward. Let me find out from you, do we have individuals that are genuinely frustrating government efforts, or maybe it's because of the bureaucracy that the president talked about?
Thank you very much. You know, the thing about institutions is that there is no individual responsibility. If something goes wrong, you can't point to a single director and say this is your problem. It's an institution of various officers and offices working together towards a common goal.
Then from what I'm getting, there is no effectiveness and efficiency in your local
the onus or the buck stops at the entire institution. The entire institution must carry the blame. But of course, you have what you call the principal officer, who's the CEO of that institution. At the end of the day, the final buck stops at that officer. So we do have, the frustrations really are there, and the drawbacks are there. I did mention earlier on in the program, say that you gave an example of noise pollution that comes from these bars and nightclubs. I did tell you to say that there are some officers within the local authority who have made some kind of pact or arrangement with the owners of the nightclubs. This is even done with butcheries, because at times when the public health visits butcheries to inspect the meat and to inspect the working surroundings or the environment to see if they are following provisions, you have officers within the Lusaka Syndicate itself that are led. Butchers say, oh, you want to go and inspect the nightclub, they say, oh,
some applies to liquor licenses.
Yes, can you reduce your volume? So it becomes very difficult to police this kind of issues. So, or to answer your question, in one part, yes, we have individuals or officers really that are not helping out in the situation of making sure that work that's supposed to be done by local authority is done on time, and is done efficiently. Number two, yes, the president did mention issues to do with rigidities. Okay, he called them rigidities. These are basically processes that are making it difficult or making it take long for issues to do with the disbursement of funds. And yes, these are issues that are being tackled, and they have to be tackled, because if these rigidities are not removed, you find that projects that were approved in a 2022 CDF will be implemented in 2024 or perhaps 2025. Then when are projects for 2023 going to be implemented, you find that you cross over into 2026 or 2027, and at the end of the day, that is a drawback in terms of service delivery. It does not really help the people that we are elected to serve.
Okay, seeing that we are running out of time, let me ask this one particular question. You have had experience. You are 1 year, is it 8 months, 7 months old as a councillor. Let me find out from you. For instance, if money is released for CDF and it's not the projects that this money is intended for, are not constructed, it's not being used for the projects it's released for. What happens to the money? Does it go back to central government, or is it local government? Does it go back to local government? What really happens to this money, Mr. Smarter? Because I have heard this question, this concern rather, times with that number, saying that when CDF money comes out for this particular year, if it's not used for the intended purpose, obviously it's the councillors and the ward committee members and the area MP that sit down and use this money for their own person or whatever. But I want you to put this on record. What is the procedure really when money is released and it's not used for the intended purpose? Because you have from confessing here that from 2021, August 2021 up to now, there are no projects in Kawata constituency from the increased CDF, and it has been increased for the second time. What is the procedure when money is released and it's not used for the intended purpose?
I would like to allay fears that money for CDF, when it's not used in a particular year, that it goes back. No. There is no such thing. It does not go back. And in fact, the Minister of Finance, Honorable Tumbeko Musokotane, went to great lengths to actually had a press conference, if I'm not mistaken, where he did state clearly to say that unutilized funds for the CDF will not go back to the Treasury if they are not utilized in that particular year. So money is safe, it's intact, it does not go back. CDF money does not go back. It's not like Ward Development Fund. You know, we've got what we call a Ward Development Fund. That's an amount of money. That's about 5% of council revenue, which is supposed to be given to all the wards for projects such as street lighting and other issues to be carried out. For the Ward Development Fund, actually the money does go back, and it's a very tricky fund, because you find that they'll say here is 400,000, and by the way, that's what the Ward Development Fund is. They'll say there's this money, but that money actually, you find that it's just on paper. You apply for it, doesn't come out. Before you know it, it'll tell you, say no, the money actually did come, but it went back. But for the CDF, money never ever goes back. It is there. The only thing that happens is that it continues to earn interest. And it has substantially earned interest, by the way, looking at the reports which we saw in December last year. It has gained a lot of interest. It is this interest, however, which goes back to what is called Control 99. That's a government account where the money, that the interest goes. So the interest goes to Control 99. And it's very difficult now for a local authority to apply for that interest, to say, okay, CDF has not been, CDF monies have not been used, they've earned the interest. Can we use that interest for this particular issue? Because now you have to apply to the Treasury for permission to have that money released. And I'm told sometimes it is released, but it's a cumbersome process. So it is better that when
there's also bureaucracy involved.
Well, bureaucracy is everywhere in government, but there's bureaucracy really which delays government. But again, we have
don't you think it's the mindset? Because if in a private institution it takes about a few hours for a check to be signed and for a check to be cleared, why can't we see the same translating into these government offices, government institutions? Don't you think it's a mindset, and this particular theme is timely? Before you answer that, as we conclude, Mr. Smarter, let me just read out this text to you so that you can answer these concerns collectively. This message comes from Dismu Kelvin of Mwinilunga. He says the toilet issue, is it a fee-paying toilet or it's for free? Because a market without a toilet, it's not a market. People there can sit anywhere and cause some diseases. So this particular concern, Mr. Smarter, together with my earlier concern, is it the mindsets of people that needs to be renewed? Because why should it take years for monies that have been released, monies that are in the accounts of the local authorities, to be having unnecessary processes? And the Republican president is cognizant of this fact, and he said, can we cut down on some of these bureaucratic procedures? And you as the councillor, together with the MPs, ward development committees, and the local government itself, together with the Minister of Local Government and Road Development, together with his PS, how are you helping the president to actualize his vision of making sure that CDF is decentralized Mr. Smarter, as we conclude?
Thank you. I would like to say that there is progress that is being made as far as removing these rigidities is concerned. But you also have to acknowledge and realize to say that these rigidities or these bureaucratic processes are inherited. And to a certain extent, they are there as a safety measure. Because you know there are issues of corruption, that massive corruption that has occurred in the past, especially when it comes to the management or mismanagement of CDA
But
funds.
should it take 1 year?
So, of course, it shouldn't take 1 year. What has to be done is to evaluate these processes and remove those which would think to say, okay, these can be removed, this can function, this can be allow the process to move faster. And I can tell you to say that some processes, let's say perhaps maybe a project for, let's say, 1 million and below, this shouldn't have to go to local government or the provincial authority. This is something that can be done locally within the council, where the town clerk or the principal officer can be a final signatory to approve that project. Then we can talk about amounts over 1 million or so as a control measure. Then those can be approved by higher bodies. So all in all, these rigidities or the processes exist as a safety measure, but they have gone too far and have kind of clogged the process of releasing funds. The process has taken too long. And so, of course, there is a talk about revising the CDF guidelines, revising the CDF Act to make it flexible so that these monies can be released and projects which the people need can be done for the people to actually get a service. Then coming to the question of the toilet, is it a fee-paying toilet? Of course, it has to be a fee-paying toilet, because you have to look at long-term measures of sustaining that facility. What we have seen usually is that if you have a free toilet, they tend to be abused. Of course, the malls around can manage because they've got economies of scale. To them, hiring Nemchem or any other company to do the cleaning and maintenance of the toilet is not an issue. But for a small market that doesn't earn much revenue, that the toilets, of course, have to run at a fee. And that's why you find that in most of these, if not all, the council-run markets, there's always a fee that has to be paid, because that fee goes towards maintenance of the toilet, ensuring to say that the chemicals, the disinfectants, the tissue, and all those things are there, and the place is kept clean and tidy. And that's the vision that I have for Kamwala South Market. I hope by the end of this year, the toilets should be there, the water should be there, the security should be there.
You hope to transform it?
Yes, we want to transform it so that at long last, the people of Kamwala South don't have to cross into Chawama and Kuku and risk being hit by a train just to get vegetables.
Okay, on that note, Mr. Smarter, let me thank you sincerely for coming through to Truth Be Told and speaking your truth on this particular platform.
Thank you very much. It's been an honor.
Okay. There you have it, viewers. That was my guest, Mr. Mainda Smarter. He is Kamwala Ward 5 Councillor, making an appearance on Truth Be Told this evening. Thank you so much for everyone that tuned in to this particular broadcast via our Facebook page, Crown TV Zambia, or via the Top Star Decoder channel 89, or better still, using the StarTimes application. We do appreciate your association with Crown TV. Until next time, join us as we continue to allow the truth to be told. Good evening.
Service and influence. Join me and answer the questions of the Zambian people. This is Truth Be Told. Those decision makers, leaders, governors, politicians, experts, and all those who sit in the aisle of resources, power, service, and influence. Join me and answer the questions of the Zambian people. This is Truth Be Told. Those decision makers, leaders, governors, politicians, experts, and all those who sit in the aisle of resources, power, service, and influence. Join me and answer the questions of the Zambian people. This is Truth Be Told. those